The door was made of glass, but it didn't reflect. Ella stood before it in the early morning light, her breath fogging faintly in the mountain air. The greenhouse rose like a dome of memory from the edge of a high valley. Its panes curved and fogged with time, its framework of copper turned green with age. No signs marked it. No path led there. She had followed only coordinates, whispered by a botanist she'd met in a museum of extinct things. She touched the door. It opened inward with a sigh. Inside, humidity, silence scent. The air was thick with chlorophyll, decay, and bloom. Rows of plants stood in shallow beds of soil and moss, arranged not by species or region, but by story. A placard read, "This is not a garden. This is a library." The first room was dim and green. Ferns brushed her arms as she passed. Their fronds curled like question marks, ancient and alert. Some glowed faintly. One unfurled as she approached. A plaque whispered, "Cyathea extincta, last seen in 2034. Reconstructed from fragments of DNA and myth." Ella knelt. The fronds moved toward her palm. She stood and wandered deeper. The second room was warmer. Vines trailed from the ceiling like forgotten verses. Small purple flowers bloomed and vanished within minutes. Their petals opened, shimmered, then collapsed into themselves like a sigh. A sign. The blooming grief. Petal lifespan, 64 seconds. Symbol of impermanence. She set a timer. Waited. Watched. At 0:56, it bloomed in silence. Pure. Brief. Beautiful. She cried for something she couldn't name. The third room was dry. Cacti stood like sentinels. Some towered above her. Others were no larger than her thumb. Their spines glistened like crystals. One turned as she passed. Selene nocturna. The tag read, "Blossoms only when heard." Ella sat, whispered a lullaby, waited. In the dimness, a bud unfolded, a pale flower with veins of blue. She wrote, "In the last greenhouse, plants do not grow for us. They grow because they remember how." The fourth room was strange. Floating mosses, orchids suspended in midair, vats filled with water, their surfaces rippling with microscopic ferns. No soil here, only vapor, light and sound. A child's voice echoed through a speaker. This is what the forests used to sound like. Bird calls, rain, wind. Ella closed her eyes. The sound soaked into her skin. She walked into the fifth room and gasped. It was filled with trees. Real trees. Tall, old, breathing. Each one stood alone, surrounded by mirrors that reflected their branches into infinity. A sign near the entrance read, "The forest that no longer stands." A guide, tall, thin, with soil-streaked hands, stepped forward. These were grown from seed banks that survived the floods. Some are dream-grown. We water them with memory. Ella walked among them. An acacia whispered in a forgotten dialect. A cherry blossom dropped one petal into her hand. A sequoia bowed ever so slightly as she passed. She stayed a long time. When she left, her clothes smelled of bark and wind. In the sixth room, the light dimmed. This was the morning section. Plants that hadn't survived. Photographs. Pressings in books. Jars of seeds that would never germinate. She stood before a single case. Lavandula spiralis, extinct 2081. Known for its ability to calm panic in both humans and bees. She breathed in. Imagined. Then stepped onward. The final room was bright. Sunlight poured through clear panels. Everything here was new. Hybrid. Half-dreamed. Plants that glowed when touched. flowers that opened to laughter, vines that twined into shapes of memory. She touched a leaf and saw her childhood garden reflected in its veins. A gardener approached, young, smiling. We call this the hope chamber. Nothing here existed before, but now it does. Ella nodded. She stayed until dusk. When she left, the door did not close behind her. It stayed ajar. The plaque now read, "If you remember it, it still lives." She walked away, seeds in her pocket. Each one wrapped in silence and story. She whispered, "Thank you for showing me that what is lost may not be gone."